In a quiet village nestled between emerald hills and sparkling streams, there lived a potter named Ravi, known for his gentle ways and wise words. Ravi created pots not only for utility, but also for beauty. Each one was shaped with care, fired with patience, and painted with joy. But among all the vessels in his workshop, two were special to water pots he carried daily to fetch water from the river. One pot was perfect, smooth, shiny, without blemish. It proudly bore water from the river to Ravi's home every day without spilling a single drop. The other pot, however, had a crack. This pot, though once perfect, had suffered a small break along its side every day. As Ravi filled it and walked the long path home, water would slowly leak through its floor. The cracked pot was deeply ashamed. It saw itself as broken, less useful, even a burden. But one day, the pot discovered something that changed its life and the lives of others forever. This is the story of the cracked pot and the wildflowers, a tale of hidden worth, quiet purpose, and the unexpected beauty of our imperfections. Each morning before the sun rose high, Ravi would prepare for the day's work. With strong yet gentle hands, he lifted the clay pots and tied them to a sturdy bamboo pole. One on the left, one on the right. Then, balancing the pole across his shoulders, he set off down the winding path. Toward the river, the path curved through open meadows and thick groves, lined with stones and whispers of dew. Birds chirped greetings from the treetops, and the breeze carried the scent of damp earth and jasmine. The perfect pot sat proudly on Ravi's left, confident in its completeness. It knew its role well: carry water, never spill, never falter. The cracked pot, on the right, sighed as it was lifted. It dreaded the journey, not the walk itself, but the knowledge that half its contents would vanish before reaching home. Why must I still do this? The cracked pot often wondered. Why does Ravi not throw me away? I am only half a pot now. But Ravi, kind and observant, never replaced it. Down the path they went, each step steady, each footstep a soft thud on the earth. At the riverbank, Ravi would fill both pots full to the brim. The water sparkled under the morning light, cool and clear. And then the return. Up the slope, through the forest, past the little bend where the path narrowed between two flowering shrubs. Water began to seep from the crack, drop by drop, soaking the soil beside the trail. By the time they reached the potter's home, the perfect pot was full, and the cracked pot was only half full. Every day this happened, and every day the cracked pot grew quieter. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the horizon blushed with amber and rose, the cracked pot could no longer bear this shame. Ravi had just emptied both pots into a large basin. The perfect pot gleamed with satisfaction, proud of another flawless delivery. The cracked pot, however, sagged against the bamboo pole. "Master Ravi," it whispered, "may I speak?" Ravi looked at it with gentle eyes. "Of course." "I am sorry," the pot said. "Every day I fail you. Every day I lose half the water you fill me with. I am broken. I do not deserve to make this journey." Ravi knelt beside the pot and rested a hand on its warm clay. "My dear friend," he said softly, What makes you think you have failed? I see how much water I spill, the pot replied. The perfect pot does its duty. I only waste your effort. Ravi smiled. Come, tomorrow. I will show you something. The cracked pot was puzzled, but it said no more. That night, beneath the stars, it lay awake, wondering what Ravi meant. Could there really be something worth seeing in the trail of its failure? The next morning, the sun rose gently over the village rooftops, casting golden rays across the dew-soaked ground. Ravi lifted the bamboo pole again, tying the perfect pot to one side and the cracked pot to the other. As always, they walked the winding path to the river. Birds sang in the trees. The grass danced in the breeze. Ravi filled both pots with cool, clear water. Then they turned and began the journey home. But this time, Ravi walked more slowly. Look closely at the side of the path you're on, he said softly. The cracked pot did as told. For the first time, it truly noticed the earth beside them. There, growing in wild splendor, were countless flowers, bright yellow marigolds, soft bluebells, tiny crimson clover, and fluttering white daisies. The cracked pot gasped. These are beautiful, it said. Ravi chuckled warmly. Yes. And do you know why they grow only on your side of the path? The pot was silent. Because I planted seeds there, Ravi said, and I knew your crack would water them each day. The cracked pot trembled. You did this on purpose. Ravi nodded. Of course. I knew of your flaw. I chose to use it, not discard it. Without your crack, this path would be bare. The pot looked again. Bees hovered over blossoms. Butterflies fluttered between petals. The air smelled of bloom and life, and the cracked pot for the first time felt whole. Later that day, after Ravi had placed the pots back on the shelf, the perfect pot turned to its cracked companion. I saw the flowers today, it said quietly. They're beautiful. The cracked pot was still beaming with wonder. Aren't they? Yes, said the perfect pot. But now I wonder. I've carried water perfectly all this time. Yet I've never watered anything. I never spilled a drop. But what good did that do beyond the potter's home? The cracked pot tilted thoughtfully. You do exactly what you were made to do, carry water faithfully. I thought that was the most noble thing until Ravi showed me the flowers. The perfect pot lowered its voice. Perhaps usefulness is not in imperfection, but in impact. From that day forward, the perfect pot no longer looked down on flaws, and the cracked pot no longer looked down on itself. Both had roles, both had purpose, and together they brought both water and life. One morning, travelers from a distant village arrived at Ravi's doorstep. They had heard of his pottery and the blooming path that lined the road near his home. We come seeking advice. One elder said, Our village is dry. Our spirits are weary. We have no flowers, no colors, no joy. Ravi welcomed them in and offered water from both pots. As they drank, the cracked pot whispered, Will they see me? Will they see the flowers? Ravi gently touched the pot. Let them walk the path. And so the visitors walked. They followed the trail Ravi took each morning, and soon their eyes widened at the sight of the colorful wildflowers dancing in the morning light. How? One of them asked. Who waters this? Ravi smiled. A cracked pot. The villagers were quiet. One elder wept. I to have cracks, he said. I thought they made me useless. Ravi led them back to his home. Then you must carry water, and let your cracks bloom gardens. The visitors returned to their village changed. Word of the cracked pot's flowers spread far and wide, and soon other villages sent messengers to Ravi, asking to visit the blooming path and learn how a broken pot had nurtured such beauty. One afternoon, Ravi stood at the edge of the path, gazing at the flowers swaying in the wind. The cracked pot rested beside him on a wooden bench. Master Ravi, it said, do you think I can help others too? You already are, Ravi replied. Each flower is a lesson. Each petal speaks of quiet service. You are no longer just a pot. You are a teacher. The cracked pot was silent for a moment. Then it asked, may I speak to the visitors next time? Ravi smiled. Of course. And so, as more travelers arrived, the cracked pot began to tell its story. It spoke of its shame, its doubt, and the day it learned the truth about its purpose. It spoke gently and humbly, and its words touched hearts more deeply than anyone expected. The perfect pot listened, too, often nodding thoughtfully. It had learned that quiet pride and humility could coexist. That beauty could be found in more than one form. One day, a young boy named Ravi arrived, holding a small pot with a chipped edge. My pot is broken, he said tearfully. It leaks like yours. The cracked pot looked at the boy and said kindly, then perhaps it's time to grow some flowers. Ravi blinked. But how? Walk the path, the pot said. Fill it with water. Let the journey begin. And so Ravi did. He returned every day, walking beside Ravi and the two pots. Slowly, the side of the path where Ravi walked began to sprout green shoots, then blossoms. It was the beginning of a second garden. Months passed, and the garden paths flourished. What once was a plain dirt trail became a corridor of color and scent. Villagers from nearby towns began referring to the road as the blooming way, to honor the unexpected gift of the flowers and the pot that made them possible the village held. Its first ever festival of petals. Children decorated carts with garlands, elders sang folk songs, and Ravi was asked to lead the opening walk down the flower-lined path with his two trusted pots. As they walked, the cracked pot felt the warmth of the sun on its clay and the gaze of kind eyes from every side. For the first time, it felt not only useful, but celebrated. A young girl handed the pot a wreath of violets. For you, she said. Thank you for our flowers. Tears if pots could cry might have filled its eyes. Later, under a tree, the perfect pot whispered, You did all this. No, the cracked pot replied. We did. Without your strength, the path would be only half-watered. Together, we filled both sides of the road. The pots touched gently. Clay to clay, a silent agreement of unity. Years passed. Ravi grew older, and though his hands were not as strong, his eyes still sparkled with wisdom. He spent less time making new pots and more time teaching others about pottery and about life. His story of the cracked pot became a lesson taught to every apprentice. What seems broken may only be misunderstood. When the time came, Ravi passed his work to a new potter, a kind-hearted young woman named Mira, who had grown up. Walking the blooming way, Mira cleaned the pots with great care and repaired their ropes. Though she made many new pots of her own, she always carried Ravi's to pots on her daily walks. The path still bloomed. One day, Mira brought the cracked pot to a school in the village. There, she told its story to a circle of wide-eyed children. When she finished, a little boy raised his hand. "I'm like the cracked pot," he said. "I'm not good at reading." Mira smiled. "And maybe you'll water something beautiful that others can't see yet." The cracked pot rested in her lap, still cracked, still strong, and now forever a symbol of hope. As Mira continued her daily walks with the cracked pot and the perfect pot, the garden path became a place of reflection for the entire village. People would walk slowly, breathing in the scent of the blossoms, often stopping to speak quietly to the pots as if they were old friends. One day, as Mira was returning home, a strong breeze swept down the path. The flowers swayed, and petals danced in the air like butterflies. The cracked pot listened to the rustling leaves and felt something stir within it. "Mira," it said, "do you hear the wind?" She smiled. "Yes, it's singing today. It carries voices," said the pot, "memories, blessings." And it was true. The wind seemed to carry the laughter of children, the soft songs of elders, the silent thanks of every person who had walked the blooming way. The cracked pot understood that it was part of something larger than itself, not just a water bearer, not just a teacher. It had become a vessel of memory, and the wind would remember. As time went on, Mira created a new tradition in the village. At the beginning of each season, every child was given a small pot with a crack painted on it, a symbol of beauty. Through imperfection, they filled their pots with seeds, soil, and water. Then they planted them along the blooming way. The path grew longer, fuller, more vibrant. One season, Mira invited the oldest villager, a woman who had known Ravi as a child, to walk the path. As she passed each flower, she smiled. "I once believed only whole things were worth keeping," she said. "But now I know. The cracks let the light in." The cracked pot, listening nearby, felt joy ripple through its clay. Now, even when no one spoke, it was understood. Every person has a crack. Every person waters the earth in ways they may never see. And every path walked with kindness will one day bloom. And so the legend of the cracked pot and the wildflowers lived on, not just in story, but in every flower, every footstep, every heart. One spring morning, long after the path had become famous throughout the region, a stranger appeared at Mira's doorstep. He was a tall man with kind eyes and dusty clothes from travel. "I've heard the tale of the cracked pot," he said. "I've come to see it for myself." Mira invited him in. The cracked pot sat near the window, warmed by the sun. The man approached it gently. "I am a storyteller," he said, "and I wish to carry your story to other lands. Will you allow it?" The cracked pot was quiet for a long time. Then it answered, "Only if you promise to share not just the flowers, but the pain too, the doubt, the shame, and how they were transformed." "I promise," said the storyteller. for the cracks are where the truth shines through. And so, the tale of the cracked pot traveled across mountains and seas. It was told in desert tents and snowy cottages, in city classrooms and countryside fields. Children in faraway places began to plant wildflowers along dusty roads. And in every place where a cracked pot was honored, something beautiful grew. Back in the village, Mira walked the blooming way. The cracked pot rode gently at her side. Listening to the laughter of new voices, the path was longer now, and still growing. As the story of the cracked pot circled the world, Mira noticed something. Curious spots began arriving at her home. They came from everywhere. Some were painted, others were chipped. Some were whole, but carried messages etched into their sides. One pot bore the words, "You helped me see myself." Another said, "Thank you for showing me I am enough." Mira created a place for them, a circle in the garden where each pot rested on a stone, surrounded by flowers. She called it the Echo Garden, a tribute to the original cracked pot and the echoes it had sent across the world. Children visited and listened to stories beside the pots. Travelers wept quietly at the sight of so many vessels that had once been dismissed, now standing in pride. The cracked pot, though older, sat at the center. It felt the echoes like ripples in a still pond of every person it had touched. "I never imagined this," it said one evening. Mira smiled. "You were never just a vessel for water. You were always a vessel for hope." Seasons changed, and though the flowers came and went, the blooming way remained vibrant. Mira trained apprentices, taught children, and passed on the story just as Ravi had done. One of the students asked, "Will there ever be a final flower?" Mira shook her head. "As long as there are cracks, there will be blooming." The cracked pot now rested on a low stone pedestal, no longer traveling but still watching. Visitors would kneel before it, whispering their fears and flaws into its gentle curve. The pot could not speak anymore. Its voice had grown still, but its presence was louder than ever. It had become legend, memory, teacher, and companion, and so the blooming way grew longer still, winding beyond the village, beyond the hills, into places yet unknown. A cracked pot had started a path that never ends. Years turned into decades, and the blooming way became a symbol of hope for many. Mira grew older, but her spirit remained youthful and bright. She began traveling beyond the village to share the story and teach others about the power of embracing imperfections. In every place she visited, she carried with her a small cracked pot, a symbol of resilience and beauty. She taught that everyone has flaws, but those flaws could water gardens of kindness, creativity, and growth. Young and old listened intently. Many planted their own seeds, inspired by the story. The cracked pot's lessons spread like wildflowers on the wind. One quiet evening, Mira sat by the garden with the cracked pot resting beside her. The stars twinkled above as a gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers. She whispered softly, "Thank you, old friend, for teaching us all." Though silent, the cracked pot seemed to glow with warmth and contentment. The blooming way would continue, as would the story of the cracked pot, a story that reminds us all. It's our imperfections that make us unique, and through them, we can bring beauty and hope to the world. The tale of the cracked pot and the wildflowers reminds us that no one is perfect. Like the pot, we all have cracks, flaws, doubts, and struggles. But these cracks do not make us less valuable. Instead, they often become the source of our greatest strengths. By embracing our imperfections, we open the door to growth, kindness, and unexpected beauty. Sometimes, it is through our challenges that we help others bloom. May this story inspire each of us to see our own worth, to carry kindness on our journey, and to water the gardens in the lives of those around us. The journey never ends, and every step has meaning.